as a guy who runs multiple online businesses that require a lot of content output, both free and paid, and as someone who takes 3-day weekends every single week and tries to work as few hours as possible, usually 20 or fewer a week, I get usually a blank stare or like glazed over eyes, and then some form of this question like, how in the heck do you do that? More importantly, the smart ones ask, What are you doing each week? What does that actually look like?" Because the how is more related to, well, technology allows me to leverage my time. And having done this for many, many years, I get the benefit of content working for me. That's why I'm a huge advocate of content marketing. If you actually are to dive in and look at what my week looks like, there is some strategy hidden beneath what I do each day to allow me to have such a high level of output and do it in so few hours. And I think this is important if you want to have a life. I was just at a conference where there were some of the smartest, most successful people I've ever met speaking. And I learned a ton because you know what? I always come to learn. I can learn from my next door neighbor who doesn't know anything about online business if I just pay attention. But especially when these people are doing such high volumes, such big numbers, I'm ready to learn. But there was a couple of moments during the weekend where I was really, really sad because the advice that was given was just to hustle, just to hustle. It was unsustainable tactics of just do this all day, every day. And if you work your butt off and you really want it, you too can get here. That's a bunch of garbage. It's a bunch of garbage. Even if it worked, let's say they're right, and I do exactly what they say, and I work my tail off, and I do what a lot of them said, which was work during the day, and then when everyone goes to bed, work at night, 10 p.m. to 3 in the morning, 1 in the morning. What kind of life am I living? Even if I make tens of millions of dollars, if I have to work that hard to make that amount of money, do I even have a life? Now, if you're watching my video, you're going to get my opinion. And my opinion is shaped by my values. I don't value just making money, although I value it. I also value, among many other things, having time, having freedom and flexibility. Now, there is a threshold of how much money I need to be able to enjoy life. That's very low, by the way. I crossed that in year 2 of my business. And hint, I was making $60,000 a year. So beyond that, it's all been gravy. But for me, I want to maintain the level of output that I care about and that I think is necessary for my businesses and to reach my goals. But I want to do that in as few hours as possible. And that requires a strategic way of organizing my week. Long intro, but let's break down what my weeks actually look like in hopes that you might take at least one thing away from this video. You don't have to be me. You don't have to schedule your time like me. You may not be able to because you may have a full time job right now. But please try to take away one thing from my weekly schedule and apply it to your own schedule if you want to continue to have a life or even start to have one in the first place. Number one thing, it goes back to the most important tool any entrepreneur could ever have, and that is a calendar. What a brilliant concept, Graham. Yeah, a calendar. Doofus, you got to have one. If you don't, oh my gosh, what are you still in high school? What is this? A calendar is like the thing you need. If you're coming on people's podcasts, if you're bringing other people on your YouTube channel, if you have a call with someone you're trying to connect with, you're not going to remember. I remember a lot, but I don't even trust myself. Write everything down, any appointment you have, any interview you're going to do, anything you promise somebody you're going to deliver this blog post or this guest post by, write it down. But as it relates to your own development of your own product line or your own website or whatever it is you're trying to build, you need to work backwards. So when I'm about to launch a course or launch a membership or launch something, I put on the calendar when it's going to launch first. And that will be based around my different goals, what my content promotion schedule already looks like, my traveling schedule, when my kid's school is in or out. So, whatever, I pick when I want this thing to go live. And then I make sure that from that point to where we are now in the present, there's enough time to get it done. So, if I say I want to launch a course this time next week, that might not be enough time. See what I'm saying? But if it's 60 days from now, for sure. 90 days from now, totally. You put it on the calendar and then you say, okay, what needs to happen the week before I launch? Well, everything needs to be done and I need to have tested all the links and the payment and everything like that. I need to have my launch sequence written. Okay, so then let's go back in time. When does my launch sequence need to be written? Okay, well, before that. You see what I'm saying? Like You have to backtrack in order of what you might need. I put all of those things in my calendar all the way back to today so that I know any week what I'm working on for that product or that launch. So that's step one, is have a calendar and then break down your weeks in terms of what big accomplishment do you need towards that big goal. It is so simple, but I am flabbergasted. Can I use that word? Totally flabbergasted when I talk to entrepreneurs who are just keeping it all in their head and they have no form of a calendar. It's on your phone, it's on Google, it's free, it's digital, it can follow you everywhere. Have a calendar. Now, when it comes to your weekly output, here's the biggest thing I could tell you: do an 80/20 analysis. If you don't know what I'm talking about, watch that video. Do an 80/20 analysis so you know what of your activities, the things that you have to do for your business, the good, the boring, the exciting, whatever, what of those activities is your 20%? Okay. For me, it's generating content. My free content, videos like this, the things that go out into the world are what drive my business. If I'm not creating content, my business will die. It is the most important thing I do. It's more important than checking emails. It's more important than building new products. It's more important than being on Instagram. It is the most important thing I do that leads to my bottom line and grows the brand. So I've identified that. What does that mean? I do that stuff first. For the longest time, that meant Mondays and Tuesdays, I was making my content. I wasn't checking email. I wasn't building any courses. I wasn't writing songs for fun. I was building my content for the week. These days, I'm batching content more often than not. So it's the beginning of the month. The first couple of days of the month, I'm shooting all my videos. I'm creating all my content for both brands or multiple brands. And I'm getting it all done because it's the most important thing. Remember that old saying from your grandma? First things first. First things should come first and be reflected first in your weekly schedule. That way, if the week gets ahead of you and you actually lose time, you will have already done the most important thing. Yes, you might not get to that other thing you wanted to do, or you might have to cancel or reschedule that interview, but you got the most important thing done. And if it's like me, in my case, that's my content. So I know Mondays and Tuesdays generally it's a content day for me, or if it's the beginning week of a month, content week, right? Get it all shot, get it all done and created if I can. Batching is a huge part of this. If you can batch processes, you get things done faster. If you are a blogger and you blog once a week, why not write 4 blog posts? Take one day and just write your 4 blog posts for the week. You'll be in that brain space. You'll work faster. You won't have to ramp up and warm up to get in that brain space a week from now. You can get it all done for the month. Then in the back half of my weeks, I have my more open schedules. I'll schedule any calls or interviews on Wednesdays and Thursdays. I'll schedule any time for songwriting if I'm just creating music on Wednesdays and Thursdays. If I want to interview somebody for my channel, I'll do it on Wednesdays and Thursdays. If I want to just learn something and watch some tutorials or read a book on a certain topic, I'll do that on Wednesdays or Thursdays because I know I've done the most important thing. Now, of course, I'll squeeze in email. I do that once a day, generally, if I'm on top of things. Not always. But my main things I'll do at the beginning of the week. I take that a step further. Every day, I do the most important thing, not things, the most important thing, because you should only have one mission critical thing a day. The other things could be okay, but what's your main thing? I do the most important thing before lunch. That is another part of my workflow. Again, you got the calendar, so I know what I'm doing every week. At the beginning of the week, I'm front loading it with the 20%, the most important stuff. And every day, I'm front loading the day with the most important stuff for that day. Again, because you're going to be freshest, but also in case things take longer than they do. And there's that old saying, things always take longer than they do, right? Then you have some buffer. I'd rather not get in my email and then have to put out all these fires for 2 hours and then I have to create content or shoot that product. And then I ran out of time because I got to go pick my kids up from school. You don't want to crunch yourself on the back end. You want to have the freedom on the front end. So what gets crunched is the less important stuff. And then final thing for me is hard and fast end times. Okay. You can be flexible with this. I'm not saying you have to be a Nazi about this, but know when you're in the office and when you're not, and clock out when it's time to clock out, at least within that 30 minutes of that window. And then also on a weekly basis, don't work every day. Take weekends off. Goodness, take at least one day off. There should be one day. God even said, on 6 days man shall work, one day he shall rest. If anybody knows anything about anything, it would be God. And he says at least take one day off. I take 3 days off a week, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, but at least take one day off a week. Otherwise, you're never actually in a rhythm. You're just holding on, white knuckling it, about to kill yourself. To be able to output at a high volume, you need moments of work and moments of rest. And a lot more happens in that rest than you think. It's not productive on the surface, but it's actually the most productive thing you could do because you're recharging, refueling, actually living a life. And then when you come back in on Monday, you're ready to output. Those are my weeks. Front load the week, front load the day, hard and fast end times, take breaks, take time off at the end of the week, recharge, and come back to live and fight another day. And use that calendar so that you know you're moving towards your ultimate goal. Love to know your thoughts. Leave me a comment below this video. Let me know, how do you structure your weeks? Especially for you, if you have a full-time job and you're squeezing this in outside of your full-time job, I get it. How do you structure that time? How do you find pockets that you're most fruitful and productive? What tips do you have to stay focused and to output at the level that you need to, given your time constraints? I'd love to hear from you. As always, thanks for subscribing to the channel. Liking the video means a lot. Have a productive week. Don't work too hard. I'll see you in another video real soon.